What's going on, family? Welcome back to the Front and Bottom FS Reaction channel. Listen, I've been reading the comments down below. A very common one I'm seeing now is Malcomx. So today we're going to touch on it. This is, I think he's being interviewed on this segment here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Come on.
In our discussion of minority groups, we have with us two guests. One is Minister Malcomx Shabazz, one of the top leaders of the Nation of Islam, or the so-called black Muslims. And we also have Mr. Herman Blake, one of the teaching assistants in the course. We will discuss today some of the goals and some of the strategies of the Nation of Islam. And I wonder if Mr. Blake might start it off by asking Mr. Shabazz a question.
Minister Malcolm, the thing that I thought might be good for starting it off is to talk about one of the most pervasive beliefs in the general society about the Nation of Islam, and that is that it is an organization dedicated to the use of violent means to attain its goals. The question I have is, how true is this, and why do you think it persists in society?
Well, the Muslims who have accepted the religion of Islam and follow the religious guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have never bombed any churches, have never murdered any little girls, as was done in Birmingham, have never lynched anybody, have never at any time been guilty of initiating any aggressive acts of violence during the entire 33 years or more that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been teaching us. The charge of violence against us actually stems from the guilt complex that exists in the conscious and subconscious minds of most white people in this country. They know that they've been violent in their brutality against Negroes, and they feel that someday the Negro is going to wake up and try and do unto them as they have done do unto the whites as the whites have done unto us. We aren't a violent group. We are taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to obey the law, to respect everyone who respects us. We're taught to display courtesy, to be polite, but we're also taught that at any time anyone in any way inflicts or seeks to inflict violence upon us, we are within our religious rights to retaliate in self-defense to the maximum degree of our ability. We never initiate any violence upon anyone, but if anyone attacks us, we reserve the right to defend ourselves. So to accuse us of being violent is like accusing a man who is being lynched, who is being hung on a tree, simply because he struggles vigorously against his lyncher. The victim is accused of violence, but the lyncher is never accused of violence. And I only point this out because the various racist groups that are set up in this country by whites and who have actually practiced violence against blacks for 400 years are never associated or identified or made synonymous with the term violence. But whites speak of Muslims almost synonymously with violence.
So from what I gathered from, me learning about Malcolm X, and they've always tried to, as far as the media goes, right? They've always tried to manipulate and characterize Malcolm X's whole movement. He definitely wasn't one to bow down. He definitely wasn't one to submit. He definitely wasn't one to tuck his tail between his legs and run away. He was definitely there during protests. He always preached, to kind of defend yourself if somebody tries to cause harm against you. But unfortunately, like even when doing that, even when protecting yourself, you know what I mean, guarding the people you care about, once the media gets a hold of you, they can make up whatever story they want, especially back in his day. They can make up whatever story they want, print that on papers, throw it around town, and get the locals riled up, and get them to not like this person, which was what we were kind of saying about Thomas Sowell as well, kind of like represented him over the media, which kind of shows us how powerful the media is in itself on its own. But from what I understand, he definitely wasn't walking around looking for a fight, but he was one to defend himself, and he always taught always to defend yourself, which is at the end of the day one of the most basic rules of just of men. Protect, provide, protect, provide, protect, provide. But in his case, he got mischaracterized and mislabeled because of it. So let's get back into it.
Associated or identified or made synonymous with the term violence. But whites speak of Muslims almost synonymously with violence. Whenever Muslims are mentioned by them, violence is brought up.
Mm.
But it's not connected with any other group. This is a sort of a propaganda tactic, or what I would call psychological warfare, to in some way make the image of the Muslims in this country be a violent image rather than a religious image.
Because it's like what we said before, you guys, if you could portray somebody in a negative light successfully, once act on that, and take somebody out, whatever, whatever have you, the people will side with you if you've already convinced them that who you're referring to is a bad person, or is a threat to our society, or is a threat to our safety. So far, absolutely, he's on point right here. Let's keep it going.
A violent image rather than a religious image.
I'd like to ask a question in that regard. What's interesting is that members of the Nation of Islam have not used violence
He looks nervous.
even when black Americans were attacked. How do you account for this? Does this in any way contradict some of the basic premises of your movement?
I don't know how you mean.
Well, you maintain, for example, that you will not, or that you should not use violence unless you are attacked by the white man. And I think we can note in the last several years, certainly, dozens and dozens and dozens of instances in which Negroes have been attacked, killed in some instances.
You mean in these
The
demonstrations?
demonstrations and the bombings, for example, recently in Birmingham, where they killed 4 little Negro girls. And what interests me is the fact is that the Nation of Islam has not done anything to retaliate.
I think you should be happy.
I was gonna say,
But
I'm going
the
to-
important thing is, does your lack of action contradict any of your basic principles?
I'll explain it.
I'm not sure if he's trying to say, like, where were you guys at when it was blacks killing blacks? I'm not sure if that's what he's trying to ask here. If that is the question, that's a legit question. That's a legit question. Like, he's trying to say, like, are you only retaliating when it's a white person doing the wrongdoing there? And if that's so, why don't you address it with, the black on black situation? I said, when a black person kills a black person, why aren't you upset about that? I think that's what he's saying right there. You guys let me know what you guys think down below. Let's go.
Does your lack of action contradict any of
No.
your basic principles?
I'll explain it. You should be happy that Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, number one, don't believe in any form of integration, and believe that every mention of the word integration by whites, whether it be from the mouth of Kennedy on down to the mouth of the lowest, raggediest white liberal in the street who is beatnik-like involving himself in the
Called him raggedy. We're that bad. Hold on.
of Kennedy on down to the mouth of the lowest, raggediest white liberal in the street.
I haven't heard that in a
who is
while.
Beatnik-like involving himself in these integration efforts. If we believed in it, we would integrate, and we would fight anybody who got in our way or made any effort whatsoever to stop us from integrating. If we really believe that the law of the land, the Supreme Court, and other so-called judicial bodies were for real when they talked about integration, we would integrate. And knowing that the law was on our side, and any effort we made to demonstrate toward integration, why, we would know the law should be on our side, if it's the law of the land. If it is the law of the land, then the demonstrators are within the law, and the discriminators are against the law. But to show you the hypocrisy of the law, when Negroes demonstrate for integration, instead of arresting the discriminators, the law arrests the demonstrators. So this is a foolish move on the part of Negroes. And when you foolishly get yourself involved with an enemy, then whatever comes upon you, that's your business. As Muslims, we believe that separation is the best way and the only sensible way, not integration. And but on the other hand, when we see our people being brutalized by white bigots, white racists, we think that they are foolish to allow themselves to be beaten and brutalized and do nothing whatsoever to protect themselves.
And even right here, I believe he's talking about MLK. And he's talking about how, you know, MLK was the kind of leader. He was always spoke to the sense of, you know, if somebody does wrong to you, don't retaliate. Kind of keep pushing forward, keep moving forward. And we all know that was one of the main differences between the two. Malcolm X was like, I'm not going to let nobody just hit on me without consequences. And MLK was, he was, peace, peace, peace. Attack dogs, getting sick on the protesters, getting beat up by police in the streets, whatever have you, tear gas, don't fight back, don't do anything back. But I believe here, with MLK's strategy, he understood that the moment you fight back, they are going to demonize you, which is what Malcolm X was speaking on earlier here. So, good stuff. Let's keep it going.
To be beaten and brutalized and do nothing whatsoever to protect themselves. They are foolish. They should have the right to defend themselves against any attack made against them by anyone. If a dog is biting a black man, the black man should kill the dog. Whether the dog is a police dog, a hound dog, or any kind of dog. If a dog is sick on a black man, when that black man is doing nothing but trying to take advantage of what the government says is supposed to be his, then that black man should kill that dog or any two-legged dog who sicks the dog on it.
Should other black men help that particular person who was attacked?
I think you'll find, sir, that there will come a time when black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves. Then the black man will think like a black man, and he will feel for other black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together. And then at that point, you'll have a situation where when you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men.
And even like right here, he's acknowledging that we're not there yet. We're not, as a people, we're not where we need to be. He's saying one day in the future, once we realize, I guess, our value as a race and our value at what we can truly contribute to society. Once we get to that point, then we'll be, free or whatever. So far, man, he's dropping nothing but facts, bro. Let's keep it going.
Where when you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together. And this type of thinking also will bring an end to the brutality inflicted upon black people by white people. And it is the only thing that will bring an end to it. No federal court, state court, or city court will bring an end to it. It's something that the black man has to bring an end to himself.
Minister Malcolm, let me, on the basis of your two remarks, ask a double-pronged question. One, is it then your assertion that the laws with respect to how Negroes are supposed to have equal opportunity and equal rights in this country are not meaningful or believed by whites? And secondly, what is your opinion and attitude toward the civil rights movement in general, and particularly the Reverend Martin Luther King and his philosophy of nonviolent direct action?
Good question.
If the white people really passed meaningful laws, it would not be necessary to pass any more laws. There are already enough laws on the law books to protect an American citizen. You only need additional laws when you're dealing with someone who is not regarded as an American citizen. But whites are so hypocritical. They don't want to admit that this black man is not a citizen. So they classify him as a second-class citizen to get around making him a real citizen. If he was a real citizen, you'd need no more laws. You'd need no civil rights legislation. Civil rights, when you have civil rights, you have citizenship. It's automatic. White people don't need laws to protect their citizenship because they're citizens. But they don't want to tell us we're not citizens. And at the same time, they don't want to pass laws that are meaningful enough to protect us as if we were citizens. And the Supreme Court desegregation decision is the best example I know. That's a law from the Supreme Court.
Dang, that's good. See, like from right here, like what I'm getting from what he's saying here is kind of like, if it just kind of shows you what kind of state, what kind of environment they were living in at that time, if you have to add additional civil right laws for a particular race or for a particular minority. Because he's saying like white people walked around, freely as they wanted to, do what they wanted to, wasn't worried about too much of anything, as far as like danger wise, you know what I mean, or being, hung on a tree or something like that. But it kind of shows you, it kind of gives you insight to where they were at where we were at as a country. You know what I mean? If you have to add additional civil rights for a particular set of people, like, to try to balance out all the craziness going on down there in the South, man. But let's get back to it.
10 years have gone by. No desegregated schools. It hasn't been implemented beyond, I think, 9% in 10 years. So this just shows you the hypocrisy of the American white man. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. And for this reason, we who are Muslims, that is, who believe in the religion of Islam, who believe in God, we don't believe that black people will ever get any problem with laws being passed or new persons being put in office, white liberals being put in office. There is nothing that the white man will ever do to bring about true, sincere citizenship or civil rights recognition for black people in this country. Nothing will they ever do. They will always talk it, but they won't practice it. And with the Supreme Court, if the NAACP can tell me that they want a desegregation decision for me 10 years ago, but yet the schools haven't been desegregated, as I say, this is a victory with no victory. It's a victory that you can talk about, but it's a victory you can't show me. So if you represent the NAACP and you are telling me about this great victory you won for me, when I look at you, I have to conclude that either you have been duped yourself or else you are trying to dupe me. And in most instances where the civil rights struggle is involved, there is no civil rights leader can point to me one concrete gain, practical gain, that black people have made in the civil rights field in this country, not only during the past 10 years, but during the past 100 years.
Now, the other part was with respect to Mr. King and the nonviolent direct action.
Well, I will let Jimmy Baldwin and John Killens and Lou Lomax, the writers, answer that. Speaking right after this church was bombed in Birmingham, Christian church was bombed in Birmingham by Christians too, mind you, and these 4 little girls were murdered. John Killens and James Baldwin and Lomax and the Negro writers and actors had a meeting at the town hall in New York. And Killen pointed out concerning these murders of these little girls said, the killings had raised doubts about the intelligence of the nonviolence in the civil rights struggle. He went on to declare that he could no longer be asked to love those who persecuted and killed Negroes.
That'd be tough. That would be tough. I'm not gonna hold y'all. Like, you know, if you were there, Mississippi, and you know, you find out they bombing churches. You know what I mean? They're bombing churches. Like, of all places, you bombing churches. It kind of reminds me of that one kid who walked into that church and did what he did. And did what he did, man, and just horrible. And then you wind up killing 4 little girls. And you know, the people there are kind of like, you know, there's no way we can just not retaliate. You know what I mean? The people of that town who knew those little girls, who knew the moms, the mothers, and the father of the little girl. You know what I mean? I can imagine like what was going through their minds. They definitely want revenge at that point. You know what I mean? Man. So he's kind of giving an insight to like, you know, the mindset of you know, of being back in those times. It's crazy.
That he could no longer be asked to love those who persecuted and killed Negroes. He also, and the writer, Mr. Handler, who's describing this, said that Killins, it was not clear concerning Killins' remarks to his audience that he was breaking with it was clear rather to his audience that he was breaking with the doctrine of the Reverend Martin Luther King's philosophy that as Christians, Negroes should love their fellow man in a truly religious sense. Now, James Baldwin, speaking on that same platform, said, and I was present during this entire affair, asserted that the American people shared a collective guilt for the persecution of Negroes, much as Germans did because of their silence during the Nazi persecution. He denounced President Kennedy for what he termed Kennedy's lack of passion in the civil rights struggle. Mr. Baldwin said that there could no longer be a Republican Party for the Negro people as long as it listed a Barry Goldwater, nor a Democratic Party for the Negro people with a Senator Eastland on its roster. He asserted that the federal government acted swiftly and energetically, that unless the federal government acted swiftly and energetically, future slaughter would make Birmingham look like a dress rehearsal. What do I think about King's attitude? King's right-hand man, Wyatt Walker, at King's convention, according to the New York Times on September the 26th, said, quote, we have been duped, meaning these persons involved in the civil rights struggle, of which King is the symbolic leader. His right-hand man says, and I quote, we have been duped, or have duped ourselves, into believing that the chains have been broken, when in truth we have only been chained more securely. Half freedom has in many instances been worse than no freedom at all. Why?
That's man. And I can only imagine like you know, MLK, the way he got assassinated, and only found out later on that it was by your own government. You know what I mean? And he's saying there we've been duped. So this whole time we're protesting in the streets, peaceful protesting, and you know we think we're doing the right thing, and we think our government has our back. You know what I mean? And I mean, obviously, you know that how that played out, but that's
Half freedom has in many instances been worse than no freedom at all. Why? Don't ask me what I think about their struggle. I can tell you what they think about their struggle. And they are pointing out that it is becoming more difficult every day for the civil rights leaders to keep the masses of black people nonviolent and long-suffering and patient and keep them from becoming disenchanted. I hope that answers your question.
Well, now there's a new party which has started on the East Coast called the Freedom Now Party, an all-black organization. Would you comment upon this and also upon the possibility that the Nation of Islam might begin to turn some of its attention to the political arena in view of the fact that it is in the political arena that Negroes have not been able to in any way get justice, as has been pointed out in your previous statement?
I'm not familiar with the Freedom Now party. I'm not too familiar with politics, period.
I never
Only
heard of
that
the Freedom Not Party either.
in the sense that white politicians have usually been very hypocritical where the so-called Negroes are concerned. So I'm a bit disenchanted with politicians and politics. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is a religious man, and his teaching is religious, and his solutions are religious. The Freedom Now party, from what I understand, is headed by a lawyer named Conrad Lynn. I know him. He probably means well. Before passing an opinion on what it is he's trying to do, I would like to analyze it and see who's subsidizing him, see who his friends are, especially who his white friends are. And after a careful analysis, if I could conclude that there was no white support, I would be inclined to have confidence in it. But if I saw him leaning too heavily upon his white liberal friends for support, then I'd be suspicious of that too. The Muslims, in my opinion, represent
He don't like
an
liberals.
all-black party.
Say that right now.
And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pointed out at before 10,000 in Philadelphia on September the 29th at a rally that we were having, that in 1964 the black people should band together and do something about selecting and electing representatives, black representatives, politically, who have the rights and the best interests of the black people at heart, and that we should also unite together and sweep out of office all of the black political puppets who are used by the white power structure to continue white supremacy in our communities.
So like right here, I'm kind of getting he didn't really believe in like he don't really believe in the political atmosphere, you know what I mean? But he's saying if we were to like put somebody in there, let them have the right credentials and make sure I guess they're not involved. They're going up there to make a difference specifically in the black community. You know. So, I mean, listen, you guys. So far, Malcomx is on point. He's got a few views I don't necessarily agree with, but like the segregation thing, I don't think he believes in. He thinks we should stay separate. You know what I mean? But I think as a country, that's not going to be beneficial for our future. I think our power comes from uniting as one country. Yeah, we're a melting pot. Yeah, we're gonna have our fair share of disagreements based on culture, and race and things like that. But I think in one of our strongest suits is when we all come together. I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy or whatever, but that's just what it is, man. I think once we get past this, the racial differences and the cultural differences, I think that we can continue to be the best country in the world, you know what I mean, and keep that going, you know what I mean? So if you made it this far in the video, make sure you guys click like, subscribe to this content. We're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. I will leave the link to the full video down below. A lot of great content here. Malcomx definitely was not one to mess around with, man. He's just a man. Like he didn't believe in letting somebody put hands on you, and you're not retaliating. That just wasn't his thing. That wasn't his religion. So you gotta respect it. If you guys comment down below what you guys think of the video, if there's any comments you want to make about things you agree with or disagree with, like I always say, man, I approve all comments, and let's talk about it, man. Until next time, y'all be easy out there. Peace.